Ja, mycket välkomna tillbaka till Aktieportföljen live. Nästa bolag att presentera är Qlife, medicinteknikbolag. Så igen byter vi till engelska. Hi Thomas Warthoe, you are the CEO of Qlife.
Yes, hello there. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. So please go ahead with your presentation and I will be back for the Q&A.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so this presentation is an update on what we have previously announced in regard to our collaboration in China with a company called Hipro Biotechnology. And of course, it's an update in regard to the last quarter. Before I go into detail with all of that, I wanted to make a short status of Qlife because I think the company is in a very interesting position. We have spent the past 3 to 4 years developing the Egoo System. And today, the system is really a very high-tech in vitro diagnostic system that can measure clinical-grade biomarkers in full blood from the home. And of course, the key feature with this is that it can be done by a lay person himself. So no need for a professional person to be involved. Egoo is the only system in the world, to my knowledge, which as a platform for immunodiagnostic analysis is close to being approved for this purpose. Of course, there are glucose meters and other small devices that are used in the home, but these are not versatile platforms that can measure a range of relevant protein immunodiagnostic biomarkers. So at the same time, Qlife is today a company that consists of 12 people, 12 very skilled people, I might say, that can operate all aspects of the platform. And when we were at the height of the company during COVID, I believe we were around 75 people. So today we are down to the very core group. So the point I wanted to make here to begin with is that the Egoo system is an extremely advanced stage and we believe plays into some very interesting society trends where there's a big need for decentralizing patient care. At the same time, our cost structure and burn rate is quite low compared to the high level of interesting tech system that we have. So, my point being a little bit, although the journey has been quite long and sometimes somewhat challenging, I believe the company is in a better than ever position to capitalize on our assets and on the emerging home diagnostic trends that we see out there in society. Now, in regard to the partnerships which this presentation is about, we announced some time ago that we have entered into this strategic partnership together with Hipro Biotechnology to really bring our product line to the Chinese market. And when we structured the agreement, we divided into these 4 categories that I have mentioned here, basically integrating their reagents onto the Egoo platforms, regulatory approval for the Chinese Food and Drug Administration for Egoo, distribution of sales of Egoo into the Chinese hospitals, and eventually also production of Egoo in China. So during the past few months, the companies together has been extremely focused on integrating the reagents onto Egoo. And, in the way you really measure whether this has been successful or not is by creating a lot of data. And that data has recently, the data process, the process of performing a lot of different protocol has finalized. And here to the right-hand side, you can see the summary of the assays that we are working on. And of course, I have not included everything, but if we take the most interesting parameters, which here is linearity and precision, our CV values, so-called CV values, and at the end, the performance criteria, which is required from, in order to get approved and onto the market, you can see that the data is really quite brilliant, really excellent data. And essentially, you can say that these types of data are the data that comes out of a central laboratory. So we are extremely happy with that process. We are seeing that what Hipro promised to do and the quality of their own reagents that they promised, that has actually been very true. And with a basis like this, it makes us very comfortable to move forward. And that's what we intend to do. So over the next couple of months, we will be in contact with the Chinese authorities in order to get all the sort of administration around moving towards clinical trials, get all that paperwork done, and then we will eventually start on what we call analytical protocols and clinical trials. And hopefully we will then see products on the market towards Q3, Q4 end of this year. Now, because of what I just said, we have actually also decided together to increase the relationship. Initially, we were focused on contractually on 3 biomarkers. Now we have increased that relationship to be focused on 5 to 7 biomarkers. And initially, we were focused on 3 biomarkers within cardiovascular diseases. And now we have decided also to include biomarkers within inflammation, diabetes, and stroke. So that obviously increases the potential and the perspective of what we are targeting in China. And I have here on the right-hand side, just to give you a little flavor of the market sizes of these 4 diseases together, I have included some data. And to run through it real quick, the cardiovascular diseases totally in the world, there are 523 million people that are living with heart diseases. And alone in China, which actually surprised me, but that's approximately half of that is the Chinese market. So quite a lot of people with heart diseases in China. The inflammation market is valued totally in the world to $647 million US dollars, increasing to 918 in 2030, and China is 1/3 of that. Diabetes, obviously one of the really big problems in society today. Globally, 529 million people is living with diabetes. And China, again, somewhat surprising, I thought 141 million of those are in China. And just to put in perspective, India is number 2 with 74 million. I believe United States is around 35 million or something like that. So definitely, again, China is a big market. Of course, we all know it's a big country, but still, I think it's really big numbers. Stroke, the last one, 12.2 million strokes per year. And in China, over 2 million cases annually. So significant numbers. And of course, these are not, although we are, attacking China with a strong partner, these are not numbers that we immediately reach. But what we are seeing in China, like we are seeing anywhere else, is this very big need to start moving patients into their home and finding new models of, treating and monitoring patient. And here, blood sampling at the clinical grade level plays a really big role, being able to do that. So, we really strongly believe together with Hipro that we are a facilitator and the first mover to be able to do that. And especially also because, as I said in the beginning, there is no other company out there which is capable of being approved for that particular purpose. So we look forward to that. Now, when you look at the 2 companies separately and as a whole, we see some very distinct advantages. Hipro has proven in the past that they are very good at bringing products through clinical trials and studies in China. They already have 3 different systems on the market and more than 45 different types of assays that are approved. So they're definitely good at that. And so we are quite comfortable moving forward into that process with them. And for us, it means not only that we will see products on the market in China, but it also means that those technical files, as we call it, can be used in the UK and in Europe afterwards with some minor modifications. In the UK, because of Brexit, the UK has not moved towards the so-called IVDR regulation, but is still under the old IVDD, which means that you can self-declare this type of product and get it on the market immediately without getting an actual approval stamp. So we intend to do that similarly to when we put it on the market in China. We will do the same in the UK. And in Europe, we will file with our notified body, whom we know quite well. And then, of course, we will have to wait under the new IVDR to see how long that takes, that approval process takes. No one knows that today. But that's definitely, I think, quite amazing that we now is capable of bringing a relatively broad portfolio of products, not only to China, but also into the European markets. And the third leg here in the middle is, of course, that not only do we achieve to have a lot of focus on regulatory, but also our cost structure of the product is, extremely a whole lot better because the Chinese are really good at manufacturing, as we all know. And prerequisite really to be able to sell in China is that the products are produced there and under cost structure, which is, permit them to actually sell it there. And for us in Europe or elsewhere, it obviously means that we can sell at very competitive prices. So we do expect towards the end of this year to see that those processes start. And over the next couple of years, we certainly expect to see some significant volume. So forward for Qlife, the key actions in 2024 is getting all these different aspects together. Currently, we are very focused on setting up production of our so-called Egoo Collect, our blood to plasma device, and also the capsules, setting that process of getting it manufactured there. There's lots of tools and a lot of issues that needs to be solved to get it started. That's going quite well. And then during the next few months, we will start to focus on getting the trials started over there. And eventually, as I said, starting sales in 2024 is really the target for this year. Excuse me. Now, and obviously, a very interesting feature that, of course, is very relevant for us right now is that we have launched our rights issue, which is the subscription period is running right now. And I just wanted to add a few words to that because for us, this rights issue really is very, very important in order forward to be able to finance the company. And I'm quite satisfied with the way that it has been structured because we structured it so that the actual issue runs now and the proceeds from that issue. The idea with that is that it should carry the company until the next issue, which is Tegningsoption 4, which is in June. And the proceeds from that issue should take us to the Tegningsoption 5, which is in November, December, which should then take us further into around Q3 of 2025, at what time the idea is to have significant revenues and profitability from sales in China and possibly also in the UK and elsewhere. So the point of the financing plan is, or the rights issue that we have launched, is to carry the company forward until profitability. Some of the details of the rights issue, I mentioned them here. Of course, it's a little technical to go into that, but what I can say is that we obviously think that the valuation of the company today, considering a little bit, again, going back to what I said in the beginning, considering the level of high-tech system that we have and the trends that we think we can help to alleviate public systems to achieve a lot better, economical outcome and better quality of life for people, we think that we are at a very low stage. And if we are capable of executing on everything I've said so far, we think this rights issue is a very attractive offer. And this time here, I have actually included something that don't normally do because I don't think it's my role really to comment on competitors. But nevertheless, I think it might be okay to do it this time because the situation for ourselves and our peers in the industry since COVID have obviously been to a certain extent some quite challenging. And I think there are some interesting parallels that we have seen from our peers and that we ourselves has been trying to sort of steer around. And I think to a certain extent, I think actually we have succeeded with that. So if we look at the three other companies here that I have included, which we always more or less have been comparing with because they are essentially addressing the same market, although being often American companies and have a tendency to scale very significantly compared to here in Scandinavia, the trends are somewhat the same. And we saw these three companies growing extremely a lot under COVID. And then suddenly, as we all know, the demand was gone. And then the really important thing was really to get your OPEX under control. And I know that we have certainly worked a lot with that. And I think some of these companies have been less good to do that. And at the same time, not really getting back to the original business plan, which was always for us home hospital and getting immunodiagnostic products into the hands of patients and people. So my point is that I think we are back to that point today. I think we have our OPEX under control, and I think we have a finance plan that takes us to profitability. And again, if we are capable of executing on that plan, I think we should be in good shape. And that's really the point with this slide here. Now, I included a small video because I think that it would be interesting. I'm not sure that everybody actually some of you have probably been at the website and see how our Egoo Health platform actually works. But I thought it was nevertheless interesting because there's probably a lot that haven't done that. So if possible, it would be great if we could run the video here. Close and run it, and in this case here 10 minutes later for a CRP test can really be sent off to your general practitioner or to your hospital or whatever you want to share it with, and that's really the idea. Here at the end, I just wanted to summarize that Egoo Health, the vision we always have been to democratize access to clinical lab data for layman person. And we are focused on getting into the home hospital segment, which is something that we see a lot of interest in, emerging a little bit everywhere. We think this is where we should spend the next couple of years to really create the company. In the longer term, we think we can play an important role into the so-called B2B2C market, so that we go through the business segment first for eventually to end up in the consumer markets and teach people how they can actually be more active in terms of monitoring their own health biomarkers. So that should empower people to understand their health and eventually, obviously, enables a better quality of life. We all want to stay away from diseases. In the long term, you can say it's always about prevention. It's about avoiding those serious diseases. So essentially going from reactive care to proactive care. That's what we are targeting with the Egoo Health System. So thank you for that, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Thomas. Very interesting listening to your presentation. One first question, what does the business model look like with Egoo Health?
Well, our business model is really the classical model of selling, razor blade model of selling a device, and then which should be relatively inexpensive, and then selling consumables that should have a sort of a little higher price, so to speak. And in that context, I can say also in regard to when we go to the B2B segments, it's because they are always quite happy to pay a higher price for the device, but they are less happy to pay a high price for the consumables. So that's really where you start. And then with our Chinese partner, we can essentially decrease prices on the devices over time and move towards those markets.
Okay, and consumables, would that also include reagents?
Exactly, yes. The consumable is really the capsules with the different, that addresses different biomarkers, and each of the capsules have all the reagents inside.
Okay, and you cover many areas with Egoo Health. Is there any particular that you think will be the key driver, or is it the broad combination?
Yeah, so I think we are really focused on the very sort of popular biomarkers that are already in use for very sort of serious diseases, right? And those are some of the ones that I talked about, cardiovascular diseases. There are some very important biomarkers that you are monitoring people that have, for instance, congestive heart failure or heart failure in general. Those biomarkers are utilized a lot already today. So what we actually do is not reinventing the wheel, so to speak. We are simply moving the monitoring of that biomarker into the home, so that, freeing up a lot of professional healthcare cost that can be transferred into the home so that people actually can do it themselves and send off the data. And that goes for a lot of different diseases. So we are broadly trying to make the Egoo Health System as attractive as possible by addressing, the biomarkers that a doctor would want to have answers on, really quickly. That's what we are trying to do.
You mentioned how care is being reactive and you're looking to make it more proactive. How would you describe the differences when it comes to this on the various markets you are in?
Oh, I definitely think today, broadly speaking, what we are seeing is a healthcare system which is completely reactive. In other words, we are only being treated when we are relatively sick, which is obviously the completely wrong way to do it, because it would be much better to be proactive, monitor your health, and trying to steer away, from being sick. Right. So I think there are extremely a lot of, benefits and things that can be achieved if we start to think a little bit differently and become more proactive. But what we also have seen, and quite honestly, we were always a little bit optimistic, that we thought that we could bring this system into the hands of consumers relatively, soon. So that they could start doing that. But truth of the matter is, that people are, it takes time to really understand what we're talking about, and sitting at home and measuring on your own blood is difficult. And I think we were a little bit optimistic there. So that's why we have taken the turn, back to the professional market, but the professional market in the home, so to speak, so that, people that are still admitted to a hospital, but there's a lot of interest in moving them into their own home and being admitted there. That's what we are targeting. And then eventually getting back to a more proactive profile, so to speak. It's going to be a very long process. And, whether or not Qlife will be the company that does this, I certainly hope so. And I hope we will be the first mover. We do see a lot of interest from big pharma and big IVD, and this concept is definitely getting there. But what I can say is that I think 5 to 10 years from now or more, this is something we will all be doing because it's simply necessary so that the public healthcare systems are not overwhelmed with the sick people, so to speak.
Yeah, I see a lot of early adopters trying to become more proactive here in Sweden anyway, and probably
exactly.
A lot of other places as well. How do you, Qlife, assess the growth and expansion potential in the Chinese market compared to others?
I can say it this way. If I were a small growth company today, I would go immediately to China, and I regret not having done that before because there are so many things here in Europe and also in the United States, unfortunately, which makes it so hard to be successful, especially when you have a very heavily regulated product, which this obviously is. China is a little bit different. There, things are still a little bit easier to get products on the market. And then, of course, you are addressing a tremendously sized market, so the potential is so huge. And I can clearly feel that on our partner there, Hipro, that, they just need the product approved and in their hands, then they will go sell it. And they expect sales, And it's quite different in Europe, where you have to set up a lot of different distributors and addressing all kinds of healthcare facilities and talking to the right peers. It's a very long process. So I'm very comfortable being there. Of course, you shouldn't be naive. I'm aware of that. There's also some political issues that is worth consideration. But nevertheless, if you find the right partner and think you can control it, then I think it's really interesting.
Thank you, and I'll have one last question, but it's kind of grand, and it goes like this. Looking ahead, what are Qlife's strategic priorities and goals for the coming years, and how do you plan to achieve them?
So we are extremely focused on China, as I think I have made it very clear. We think this is where we should go. This is where we should build a company. Of course, we should use our technical files data to also file in Europe and get that going. But I'll be honest, I think sales will come from the Chinese market. We will do also in the UK and Europe and get that started. But again, going to what I said before, things will run much faster over there. But of course, we have an ambition to be everywhere. But one other thing that we are definitely targeting is that we are looking also for that. We started to sort of approach big IVD, big pharma, to get that really big partnership that also can help us outside of China. And what I actually have seen is that now that we have this Chinese relationship, partnerships are very positive towards that, because it has often a lot to do with the cost structure, COGS, on the product. It's very, very important that you can achieve, some very ambitious low pricing, and without that, without that relationship, you cannot. So they are very, very positive. So I foresee that it will, we are in a lot of discussions, and I foresee that this will go well. So generally speaking, I think Qlife is in a very interesting position. We have a very, very interesting high-tech product. We see society trends, that are moving all in that direction. Everybody wants to do studies in how to keep people in the home, patients. And of course, the big companies are sitting on the sideline and looking at, who gets a fast track into this market. And I think we will do that.
Thank you so much, Qlife CEO Thomas Warthoe, for this presentation and Q&A.
Thank you for having me.